From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! What is up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Coming up on today's show, they're not perfect, but they keep winning, just like all the elite teams this season. Thoughts on fourth down decision-making, and with Miami seemingly on the cusp of folding, this schedule becomes that much more manageable. Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. That's Tallahassee, Florida. CPTallybar.com, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. Monday through Friday, select lunch specials throughout the weekdays from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Mondays. Man, it's been like, a year since you haven't been able to go have a victory burger on your Monday, everybody, after a football game. So go to the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Half-pound Black Angus burger, side dish of your choice, only $8.99 over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Don't forget Friday as well. Another meet and greet, 3 in a row.
Yep.
Come on out. Meet Jeff. Meet Corey. Meet Tom. Meet everybody else with the warchant.com family from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Fridays, happy hour over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Corey, how are you, man?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. Thanks for asking. It was a busy weekend. It was a long weekend. Those noon games come quick.
Right, they do.
On Saturday morning.
They do. Almost feels weird, like on a Friday night. Usually you're kind of like, oh, I got Friday night to do my thingy thing.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, but I gotta kind of go to work early. But you got to take it with the good with the bad. So I won't complain. I'm a noon guy. I've converted somewhat. But we get a primetime one, 7:30 against Duke this Saturday. But first, let's wrap up the game that was another dub for Florida State, fourth-ranked Florida State. They hold steady in the polls, 41-3 over Syracuse. You covered it times 2, right? I mean, it was 17.5 was the spread. You won by 38 points, so do the math, everybody. 14 drives. You scored on 7 of them. You had only 1 3-and-out. You had 5 drives, that were 70 or more yards. Yeah. It seemed like there was opportunities early in that game for Syracuse to maybe make it one of those games that ended up being into that spread. But I don't know, man. Florida State somehow asserted itself despite some fourth down miscues in that second quarter to pull away. So let's start off first half. Ultimately, how do you think they played in that first half, Corey, and how much of it did it carry off into the second half to end up being a romp, do you think, there?
Well, look, I'll answer the question. They played fine. The defense was very good the whole game. So they played good in the first half. They played well in the second half. The offense was not very good in the second quarter there at the end. That was, to me, the most frustrating part of the first half, and it's hard to be too frustrated when you end up winning 41-3, and I'm not frustrated. I was frustrated in the moment that you got the ball at the 5-yard line and didn't get points at all. It reminded me of the LSU game last year.
The 4-yard line, actually, but yeah.
Well, I thought they got it to 5, and they got a yard run to the 4, and then either way, they didn't get a yard after first down, and they were, it was 4th and 4 from the 4. Kick the field goal. Just kick the field goal there, Mike. But I thought the offense overall was good. They had 530 yards. They established the run in the second half, and I think we have to understand that Syracuse defense is a goofy one to go up against. And they do some things well. It's not like teams are just, now that might start now, but it's not like teams have just been running it down their throat and marching up and down the field on Syracuse. They lose because they can't move the ball, which you guys saw on Saturday. Their offense is horrendous. Florida State's defense played well, but that doesn't take away from the fact that Syracuse's offense is horrendous. So I thought Florida State's offense, kind of the hiccups that we've seen. What'd you say, 7-14?
Yeah.
That'll play. That's not terrible, but I think it, really should have been at least 8-14 because you had the ball at the 5. It's crazy you didn't score there. And then, when you look at this, they're not. What are they? I think I looked it up. They're 7th in the country in scoring. They're averaging 42 points per game. They're averaging like 6 points a game more than they did last year. So they've made the strides we wanted to see. You know what they've been awful at though? They've been good coming out of the locker room. They've been good on their first drives. They have been horrible in the 1-minute offense. And they had a chance on Saturday. They got the ball. Norvell loves to call the timeouts to try to get the ball back. And then again, They get the ball, they get a couple of first downs on little shallow crosses to Destin Hill, and then Jordan gets hit and fumbles about 18 yards backwards, 12 yards backwards, and that was a lucky break that it didn't stay in bounds. So in that's the second straight game they've had that where they've tried to do something late and they've gotten a pressure and it's been derailed. But I just thought I thought the offense was okay. I thought Trey Benson dropped some passes that he has to catch. But I want to start, man, like Keon Coleman is otherworldly. And it's really refreshing and encouraging to know, assuming Johnny comes back sometime soon. Obviously, he didn't play this past week, but I don't think they expect that to be I don't know that it'll be much longer. We'll see, I guess. But it's got to be so refreshing and encouraging to know that if everything else isn't going well, you've got two guys that nobody else has, and you've got a guy that, I don't know, man, I guess Marvin Harrison's the best receiver in the country. Keon Coleman's really close. The kid at Washington's really good too. Keon Coleman's one of the best, not just receivers in the country, one of the best players in the United States. And you've got him on your team. And in a close game, when things aren't going necessarily great offensively, you've got a weapon that they just can't handle. And I think that goes for every defense in America. You're just not built to cover a guy like Keon Coleman. So it's good he's on your team.
Yeah, 9 catches, 140 and a touchdown, 107 yards on punt returns. Stop tripping, Keon. Make it into the end zone, man.
Right.
Finish the drill on that.
Come on. P-Dub would have scored.
Yeah, I didn't want to get into philosophical questions this early in the show, but I guess since we did bring up Keon, I mean, is Keon almost like emblematic of what this team is? Like, I mean, there's games where, you expect more out of him. Like he's not able to maybe bring down some 50-50 balls against Boston College. But then he has games where he catches 9 balls, like against LSU and against Syracuse. Same way this offense is capable of, looking dominant in stretches, but then maybe kind of falling asleep in certain modes. Or are they one and the same? Is it just a weird coincidence at this point?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think I am more philosophical about this now. I just think it's football. I think that as we look around the country, and I'm going to bring this up again because I do hang out with fans. You don't come to Corner Pocket on Fridays. That's all this guy. But you did. You came the last Friday. By the way, I signed. I had 2 autographs this week, Aslan.
Nice.
2. On Friday, I signed a hat. I can't remember the guy's name. He was down with his wife from South Carolina.
I would have remembered your name if I was their guy from South Carolina.
Camden. I remember where he's from. Camden, South Carolina.
All right, stand up.
He also, I think, said it was for his brother, but then he put the hat on. Anyway, so I signed a hat, which was really funny, and I signed it in front of some friends, so that was cool to look like a big shot.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I signed, her name's Cassidy. I signed her Deion Sanders jersey.
Ooh.
I was like, are you sure you want me to do this? This is crazy. Because it's a jersey. And she's like, no, please, sign it. So I signed her. I signed the number 2 on her Deion Sanders jersey. Big fan of yours, by the way, Cassidy.
Nice.
So you got that going for you too.
Can't wait to see that one on eBay. Deion Sanders signed jersey by Corey Clark.
Yeah. It can be a signed Deion Sanders jersey. You don't have to know who signed it.
Yeah.
But it has been signed. But yeah, talking to people on Friday, and then even after the game on Saturday, I hear words like mediocre, terrible, not consistent, all talking about the offense. And I'm like, guys, it's 41-3. And I keep coming back to this, and I just think there's something to it. Florida State fans aren't used to seeing a great team, which this might be, but a top 5 team that when they roll over a team, it doesn't look like Swiss cheese. Like in the 90s, obviously they honored the 1993 team. I mean, that team was scoring every time it had the ball. If Charlie Ward, it was a stunner if Charlie Ward's offense had to punt once and a half. It just didn't happen. They just marched up and down the field, and obviously I think that Jameis offense from 13 was probably the most efficient offense in college football history. So those are the memories of what greatness looks like, or even a good elite offense. But I think this offense still has room to grow, but it just won 41-3. It took control for the second straight game. It took control of the game in the second half. I don't think its coach did him any favors. by some fourth down decisions, one going for one, and then another, 4th and 1 from the, running the Wildcat that Jordan Travis clearly wasn't a fan of. But overall, when you look at the results and you look at the yardage and you look at the first downs and the way your quarterback threw the ball, even though he had 4 drops, including one that would have been a touchdown, you're like, yeah, that's – I don't know what people were expecting. Averaging 50 a game, because that's not going to happen. It's certainly not going to happen this week because this defense is the truth that you're playing. But overall, watching it, although there are some frustrations, that's every team. You're always going to be frustrated. You're always going to leave points out on the field. You're always going to leave yards out on the field. All the best offenses do that. I think Florida State did a good part of mitigating that after, a 2-possession stretch in the second quarter. I come back to the ball at the 5-yard line. And they didn't even score a touchdown after Keon's punt return. So not great in the red zone, which they've been exceptional at all year.
20 out of 20 going into that game. All right,
but
so
most touchdowns. Most of them were
here.
touchdowns.
Why did that bother you so much, Corey? I mean, it was – listen, I mentioned the other day how some of the Virginia Tech game, I think maybe even the Syracuse game to a large degree, kind of felt like 2019 Florida State football to me, to where they go on these stretches and it's a boring game, and all of a sudden they make a miscue or two, and then they find themselves in a game eking out barely, and it's like, what the hell is going on? But that's not happening. Like they're rolling out to these leads, and then you're making valid points in the press box as we're talking about. Like, listen, man, it's still a 2-possession game. You have a fumbled snap, a kickoff return, like something wonky happens. You find yourself in a 1-possession game. There's a lot of stress on you, and then all of a sudden, who knows what's going to happen? But it's like, man, this team is so mature. They have so much experience. They have a pretty sound coaching staff behind them operating all this. Like, at no point do I feel threatened at all. And I don't know how much of this, like, well, you can't do this against Georgia. You can't do this against Michigan. It's like, yeah, point taken. I don't think they'll find themselves in these lulls they do. Like, what upset you so much about the way they finished off that second quarter? I mean, still going up to half, up 2 scores, and knowing that you're going to get the football.
Well, I haven't looked at the numbers. I think it was 3 straight possessions where they didn't score, including one ball where they had one time where they had the ball at the 5. And what specifically bothered me about the ball at the 5-yard line is, respect the game a little bit. Like, it's not 4th and 1 from the foot line. It's 4th and 4. And the 3 plays you had just run had done jack squat. So unless you have a play in your back pocket, it's hard to throw the ball from 4 yards out and score. Unless you have a play in your back pocket that is, you haven't shown it yet. They don't have a chance at stopping it. Take the points. You're up 20-3, and I think that allows you to breathe a little bit. Because 17-3, yeah, and especially against Syracuse, you're feeling good. It would have been a shocker if Syracuse could have come back. But crazy stuff happens, man. Syracuse isn't that much worse than Boston College. And so you're up 17-3. They give you a gift at the 5-yard line. Well, they didn't give it to you. Joshua Farmer made a great play to knock the ball out. Go ahead and take those points. Go up 20-3. Now you have a 3-score lead. I think you can, like I said, I think it relaxes you a little bit. You can breathe a little bit, and then maybe you put your foot down and you end the game sooner because Syracuse is down 3 scores now. Maybe they start playing differently. Maybe they stop. Well, they didn't. I was going to say maybe they stop milking 25 seconds off the clock, but they didn't. They still did that even when they were down 31-3. So I think that's what bothered me. You know what bothered me about Aslan is because if they were playing Georgia in that moment and they were up 17-3, there is 0 chance he goes for it there.
Yeah, it's situational awareness. Like
that's what
I'm
saying.
So,
that's what I'm saying. I think it's never about the opponent, right? You do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. In that moment, it's 17-3. You're up by 2 scores. Make it 3 scores. Again, you're not at the 1. You're at the 4. And again, you have not looked good the previous 3 plays. So take the points, regroup, say thanks defense for those 3 points. Go get us a stop. Now, would I be so mad about it if Conrad Hussey's 2-for-1 penalty hadn't happened on the ensuing punt return? Because that's also part of the equation, right? And I need to factor that in. That Norvell goes for it there, having a good idea. All right, there's not a huge risk here because even if we don't score, Syracuse has the ball at the 5-yard line. So we'll probably get the ball back in real good field position with a chance to go right back down the field. And if we don't forget, Keon Coleman had a 30-yard punt return right after that was called back because of the Hussey double penalty. So instead of having the ball and they would have the ball at the 15-yard line. Instead, they had it at like their own 45, so it's like a 40-yard penalty there. And you end up not scoring there. Syracuse gets the ball back, completes a 3rd and long crazy pass down the sideline where the kid almost stays in bounds. And if he stays in bounds, there's nobody there, and it's going to be a 75-yard touchdown. And now it's 17-10. And I think I probably was still a little shell-shocked from the Boston College game. Like, if you can put teams away, put them away. And I just think the points there would have made it a 3-score game. It would have made, and I just thought he coached that not like how he'd coach this week, not how he'd coach against Miami, in my opinion. But we'll see. Maybe he's always going to be going for it from 4th and 4 from the 4-yard line. But by and large,
it wasn't Dan Lanning, passing up points before half. Against,
that's different, right? Don't you think that's different?
Exactly. Yeah. That's why, people are almost treating it like
no, it's not anything
it.
close to that.
It's not, man.
No, number one, you're not playing Washington.
Exactly.
It's not anything close to that. I just thought it was I thought it was a bit. It was just a bizarre decision.
It was out of his decision pattern. I get it.
Yeah,
so,
and it's hard to know what his decision pattern is there, because I don't think he would do it in another game. And also I'd want to say this: being up 20-3 and being up 24-3, it's not that big a difference.
Right.
But there is a big difference between 17-3 and 20-3.
Okay.
So just know the risk versus reward there is all I would say. But you hear me; you're in the press box all the time.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is looking at top. I'm criticizing everybody. I did it with Dino too. Like what him trying to kick that field goal down 24-3 made zero sense. But yeah, I think overall when you look at the game, man, I don't know how you're not ecstatic is probably too strong a word.
Very much so.
But quite pleased.
Yeah.
You came out relatively injury free. You got other guys involved in the passing game. Jaheim Bell looks closer to 100%. Keon Coleman is from another planet. You did it all without Johnny Wilson. And I really liked how Trey and the running backs ran in the second half. That was good to see, too. I thought your offensive line kind of took control of the game against the defense that's not all that easy to run against. So all that being said, it's a really good win. Not over a really good team, but you didn't fiddle F around, and it's all of a sudden a game in the fourth quarter. The game was over. Just like it should be, because you're much better than that team.
One other thing on that decision. Ultimately, him taking accountability, him being Mike Norvell, taking accountability for those, failures to convert those 4th downs. How much does that play? And I mean, it was a nice thing for me. Some fans, I think, didn't maybe see it that way. But I mean, does that affect the way that you processed it now, maybe a day or two after the game, or especially in the immediate aftermath, that he's like, listen, man, like, those were me. I got to coach him better. And you're like, he said he learned his lesson against LSU last year. Seemingly he did, in terms of maybe getting too cute on the goal line. Maybe this is another learning data point for him as well. I mean, does that affect the way you judge those decisions now that at least he owned up to it?
Yeah, and I don't know if he was owning up to actually going for it or owning up to the play calls that he had on I think they went for it on 4th down 3 times and were 0 for 3, I think. I think maybe he was more. I think he was talking more about the 4th down plays themselves. But he did say, if you guys didn't watch the post game, he did say
0 for 2. It was those two plays.
He told the players that that was on him, and he apologized to them and said he's got to be better. He's got to coach better. Which I just think that goes a long way in a locker room. If that's the truth, then there's no reason to believe it isn't. That he actually told the offense, that's my bad, I'm sorry, instead of just blaming them for not blocking the right guy or the execution or the quarterback not throwing it well. I just think that goes a long way, man. I think it goes a long way to go in there and say, yeah, man, I screwed up. And I think he is secure enough in who he is as a coach, and why wouldn't he be at this point with the number 4 team in the country, that he can own up to mistakes. And that's the thing about life, man. It's so many people think that if you admit you're wrong, it makes you look weak. And it's the exact opposite, in my opinion. It makes you, now Cristobal did it in a completely wrong way, but I think it just makes you look strong. And I think if you're in there in front of those 21-year-old kids saying, that's my bad, guys, we no longer lead the country in red zone scoring, and that's all on me. That's not on you. I apologize. I'll be better. I just think that goes a long way, because you're asking them to do the same and to be better. And sometimes, like he said, he makes bad calls and he doesn't make the right decision. I think that, again, I'll be interested the next time they have 4th and goal at the 4. Mm-hmm. What he does. I just think it felt like a Syracuse one-off. Like, it felt like it was so specific to that moment in that game, because of the way the defense was playing, because Syracuse's offense is horrendous. but I just thought I don't like that message necessarily. Coach how you'd coach. The right play there is to go up by 3 scores. Whether you want to or not, whether you're being emotional because you're mad at the first 3 plays, go get the points and settle down, and then the next time you get the ball, you can go call your touchdown plays.
VitaminEnergy.com, promo code WARCHANT, helping you make the best calls of your day when you got the Focus Plus in you. Maybe the Mood Plus, maybe a little bit edgy after that win. Not sure why, but we'll talk about it maybe next in the second part of the show. But go to VitaminEnergy.com, use that promo code WARCHANT, BOGO, WARCHANT, B-O-G-O. That means buy one, get one free. I don't know if I'm going to dive into the health aspects of it and what it compares to other uppers out there in the black market that Ira decided to go and delve into during the War Chant Wrap. That's not what we do. That's not what we do here on the show. But we do go to VitaminEnergy.com. We use the promo code WARCHANTBOGO, and we're stocked up here at the Midtown offices. Workout Plus always on the menu on Mondays. Monday, upper body day, maximum effort. Got to get the most that you possibly can. So I take the Workout Plus with the sour apple flavor. I think it's delicious, too. It's almost like a midday dessert, too. It's a nice little pop to the palate. I like it. I think you'll like it as well. VitaminEnergy.com, promo code WARCHANTBOGO. Shake it and take it. It is energy with benefits. VitaminEnergy.com. Corey, you going to take one on a Monday? Power through the day?
No, I take one on Tuesday because that's when I have to get up early for the practice. So Tuesday and Wednesday are my Vitamin Energy days.
I hear you. So, Corey, back maybe to the larger point when you talk about this is what college football is, not so much a margin of victory, but just where you find yourself in these games. When you're playing a conference opponent, a team like Syracuse, you know very well. You've played them nearly every single season that you've been the head coach here now if you're Mike Norvell. I tweeted at halftime the scores of some of the other top 5 teams that were in action. The one I didn't was Ohio State because it wasn't maybe as comparable because they were up 20-0 and they weren't trailing at any point. But, Georgia found themselves, not that they were threatened, but they were trailing at a certain point against Vanderbilt in the first quarter. I think it might have been like 24-7 at half. Michigan was up like 21-7, maybe 28-7. They had not scored first. Indiana jumped out to a lead on them. Alabama was at home. Michigan was at home. Alabama was at home. They ended up finding themselves in a dogfight in the fourth quarter against Arkansas. And, I tweeted that out almost a little bit tongue-in-cheek because I'm not Mr. Optimistic. I'm not Mr., Florida State's the best team in the country. It's all going to work itself out. Relax. I mean, I realize there were some moments here that do get you upset, but it's that if you're kind of what we think they're, if you're a borderline great football team this year, and even if you're not playing at your maximum capability, like, that's what happens, right? You still end up winning a game 41-3 and you dominate. Yeah. And the reason I'm pointing out these other teams, focus on what Florida State is, well, this is who they're probably going to compete against when it all matters, right? Like possibly Alabama, possibly Georgia, possibly Michigan. So they're struggling through certain situations in games themselves. Now maybe, Michigan ends up scoring 7 straight touchdown drives or something crazy like that. But everybody has flaws. So when you're flawed, you still end up looking that way. I mean, it's hard to really judge poorly against your team. I don't know really where we're going on this, Corey. Feel free to save me on this, but everybody's struggling to a certain degree. So that's why I'm not concerned with Florida State's sort of in-game ups and downs.
Well, and yeah, that's the thing. It's the in-game ups and downs. But if you look at the final product the last 2 weeks, they've outscored their opponents 80-20. What else were they supposed to do? 100-0? They had some struggles in the second quarter of each game. I thought they started out. I think they scored on their first drive against Syracuse. They started out very good. Because of the catch by Keon. Which, by the way, guys, that's just insanity.
It makes no sense. Still, I saw 5 angles. None of it makes sense.
Backhanded catch I don't know, man. It's like LeBron in an alley-oop in 2012. Yeah. It's just crazy how high he is. He's going over his head. Anyway, just a remarkable catch and a remarkable player. It's a good job there, Battle's End. I think that, when you look around the country, that's the thing. Michigan struggled. They were down 7-0, I think, second quarter. But there's 4 quarters, and Michigan dominated the rest of that game. Georgia obviously dominated Vanderbilt once they got going. Ohio State did what they did. Alabama didn't dominate Arkansas, but I think Arkansas is better than those other teams we talked about were playing. are more talented, I guess. Their record's terrible. But I just think overall, when you look at the landscape, this Florida State team is fitting in just with all the other elite teams. The only team that I don't think has struggled, am I wrong? Yeah, I think Washington is the only one that's just beaten the bejesus out of everyone they were supposed to beat the bejesus out of, right?
I think
But then they won by 3. Like, is their win at home against Oregon by 3 points that much more impressive than what Florida State did to LSU? No. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so
Right.
the point being, what I worry about, Aslan, honestly, you talked about worrying about you might play a Georgia or a Michigan down the road. Yeah, you might, but you won't if you lose to these teams. And so what's
But they haven't been
encouraging to
close
me,
to losing to these teams.
no, that's what I'm saying. What's encouraging to me is they handled their business after, and they were that close a month ago. They were close to having the worst loss any top 15 team has had at Boston College. So since that, though, they played 2 games against overmatched teams and boat raced both of them. Now, no, they weren't up 50-0 at half in either game, but they dominated those games. In the defense, again, I want to come back to the defense. We haven't even talked about the defense much. If they're not giving up huge busts, this is a good defense. It is a solid defense. It is a well-coached, at least these last 2.5 weeks, or 2.5 games, has been a well-coached defense that is not giving yards up. Why I was so frustrated at halftime of the Clemson game is like, man, this Clemson offense isn't this. And you've given up 17 points in 4 drives. They've had the ball 4 times. You gave up 2 touchdowns and a field goal. That's horrible. And then you know what they've done since? They've given up 2 touchdowns total. And one was against Virginia Tech with some crazy penalties thrown in to get Virginia Tech down the field. I'm just, when you're thinking about what this season can be, going undefeated in conference, winning this week, which is no guarantee, the way this defense is playing should fill all of you with hope. Because no, it is not going to create 5 turnovers a game. It's not going to shut out everybody it faces. It's not going to push everybody back and get 28 tackles for loss a game. It's not the 1997 Florida State defense, or 98, which is probably a better one. But it is a good college football defense to go along with an offense that is very good. It could be even better. Again, man, if LSU had Florida State's defense, they'd be number 1 in the country. So would USC. So would 3 or 4 other teams. This team is playing. This side of the ball. This defense is playing lights out right now. And as Shaheem said after the game, Shaheem Brown, who got to break the rock, by the way, they had double rock breakers, which is I think that might be a first, maybe. They communicated at an elite level, and you're seeing that. Remember, the thing I was most frustrated about in the Boston College game, it's not that they can't tackle the kid that nobody can tackle. That's understandable. They're giving up wide open passes where nobody's on the screen with dudes, and that has not happened at all since the first half of the Clemson game. That's encouraging, right?
Right, and I guess I don't want to say defense or like my counter to that is just like it's really hard to judge who they are because Syracuse and Virginia Tech are not very talented, proficient offenses. But like you talk about the communication aspect. Like you don't have to be great to confuse this team. Seemingly, it seemed like the way they played against Boston College, right? Boston College wasn't using athletic superiority to get wide open on those plays. That was like just running basic concepts that Florida State seemingly was not all that prepared for, but they've cleaned that up. So that is something to be comforted by, to your point.
Yeah, and I think because when you look down the road, so look, man, the game this weekend's not going to be easy. I mean, I think Florida State's favored by 15 and a half, something like that. We don't know if Duke's quarterback is going to play. And Duke just won a game where they threw 1 pass in the second half, which is insanity.
Conference game, too. It was raining,
conference game.
It was raining. Bad weather.
Yeah, but one pass, and they won 24-3. That defense is very, very good. Held Clemson to 7 points. A lot of yards, but 7 points. This will obviously be the biggest challenge they've had all season. But this game, I still think, I mean, we'll find out a lot of it. We got to talk about the Miami-Carolina game. That Miami game at home is not going to be easy. I'm still not convinced that Wake will be easy. We'll see. They looked horrible this week against Virginia Tech. But
is Pitt back?
Pitt looked good. That was a nice win. Again, I feel like Louisville kind of gave that game away more than Pitt took it, but Pitt won the game. Good for them and good for Florida State. Honestly, that Louisville won that game for ACC championship game reasons. But the way you can get knocked off, the way you can lose to a lesser team, is it's going to be hard for one of these lesser teams that's not a Michigan or Ohio State or Georgia to just drive it down your throat 4 times a game, 4 80-yard drives, just pounding away on the ground. That's just not gonna. And then just I just don't see that happening. Because it hasn't happened in 2 years. What you worry about in these games is the teams that are capable of beating you. So North Alabama is not. Maybe I'll say Wake and Pitt are capable of beating you if you play poorly. But if the defense just plays well, not incredible, but well, you can't lose to these teams. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Like they played poorly against Boston College, and that's why it was a game. They played poorly in the first half against Clemson. That's why it went to overtime. Yeah. The fact that they're playing well now, though, if they continue to play like this, no, they're not going to shut everybody out. But you're going to have to score, as we've seen, you're going to have to score 31 points to beat Florida State, at least for the last year. And, if this defense continues to play like it has been, who left on the schedule do you fear, if Florida State's defense plays well to its peak, can get there? I don't know that there's anybody left on the schedule until you perhaps play Carolina and Charlotte.
Yeah, I do not really feel all that threatened until we start talking about December.
But that doesn't look if you've been great at holding on to the ball, you've been great at not turning it over, knock on wood. As long as that continues and you don't give teams points like you did against Boston College, and you continue to hold on the ball and make teams have to go earn points against you, you're going to win all these games. But that's a big if.
Let me ask you this, Corey. Winning these games comfortably, kind of carrying on to what you were doing last year. They didn't dominate Syracuse on Saturday the way they did last year in the Carrier Dome, it feels like. I don't know if there's any merit to even talking and discussing that sort of stuff, because I wonder, because it is 41-3, but it did not look like a suffocating just embarrassment of elite play versus them being absolutely feeble, the way like the Georgia Tech game seemed last year, the way the Syracuse game seemed last year. Are those things that are worth discussing? Is it worth comparing to? Does it feel that any different than the blowout wins they had against a similar opponent last year?
No, I thought it's weird you say that, to me anyway, because I thought it felt quite similar. And I think the yardage, I think the yardage disparity last year and this year was greater. I think the score at the half last year was 24-3, and this one was 17-3. And you really could say it just comes down to the botched stuff at the 5-yard line. I thought it felt really similar. I don't think Syracuse ever sustained anything of note. They never felt like they were going to move the ball up and down the field against your defense. It just never seemed that way. I thought the defensive line was exceptional in rushing the passer. And Schrader clearly didn't want to get hit. And he became a non-runner.
He's a running quarterback who doesn't want to run. It's bizarre.
Yeah, it's tough. That's a tough deal. Now, Babers, after the game, to give him credit, or to give Schrader credit, said that he had food poisoning. But, I thought it was the exact same. The score last year was 38-3. The score this year was 41-3. It just felt, to me, it felt just about the same. Again, the frustration of the second quarter being the only difference. But I thought the defense looked just about as good as it did last year. It gave up a couple of runs, a couple of pass plays, but one that I think Tatum misses a tackle. I think Conrad Hussey missed a tackle on a third down play that gave him 15 extra yards. I think their running back took a wildcat snap and that was their longest run of the day. Yeah. Other than that, their ABC offense that they were trying to run, Florida State completely suffocated. And I wanted to say this too, because you brought up Virginia Tech's offense not being very good. I think there's a chance Florida State made Virginia Tech's offense look like Syracuse, but it's not, because in the game before, who did Virginia Tech play in the game before Florida State? Was it Pitt?
Yes, at home.
Yeah, they beat them. They put up 35 on that team.
Yeah.
And then this past game, and this is with the drones kid at quarterback. And then this past game at home against Wake, they put up 30. Drones was 20 of 29 for 321 yards, and Virginia Tech ran for 141 yards. So they had 460 in that game and 30 points against Wake Forest. And we all know Wake Forest isn't it's not, William and Mary. And so that, to me, says that maybe that team's about to take off, and Florida State just made them look horrible. Syracuse, I think, is horrible. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I think Syracuse is a bad defense, a bad offense that you made look like a high school offense. I think Virginia Tech might be an okay offense that you made look like a high school offense. Like, again, they had 10 points. They had one touchdown. All their points came in the second quarter, offensively, and they all came with some, let's just say, dubious penalties. So, that being said, I don't think Duke's offense, especially if Riley Leonard doesn't play, or if Riley Leonard plays but is limited and can't run and can't move, I don't know that their offense is much better than what you saw against Virginia Tech.
Agreed. Yeah, it's weird. Duke's defense will be a challenge, but ultimately the fact that I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball because I don't think they're going to have adequate quarterback play. Just, again, it's difficult to know just how – we know how good this team is to a certain degree, but now it's late October. We're getting to mid-late October here. I kind of almost wish we were playing Clemson now. Because if Clemson was 6-1 right now, maybe have some more confidence, and then you kind of get a better feeling of where you stack up with the rest of the country. Because Alabama's going to have Tennessee, Oregon, Washington just played Oregon. Georgia. I guess you can call Kentucky their test. It's weird because all of the tests for Florida State were so front-loaded and were such a recency bias. What have you done last week? It's really hard to kind of gauge growth when your opponents seemingly get a little bit weaker. But maybe you're all right about Virginia Tech being stronger than I'm giving them credit for. Pulled up the drive chart from last year real quick, Corey. Florida State went touchdown, punt, touchdown, fumble, punt on their first 5 drives.
Yeah. That seems about similar.
Yeah, they went touchdown, punt, field goal, touchdown, and then turnover on downs.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I don't remember anything that's happening because clearly it felt a little bit weird.
That's fine. All these wins are running together, baby.
They are.
That's 12 in a row. It's hard to remember what it's like.
Hey,
It's crazy though, right, Aslan? Again, I do want to, and I want to make sure I do this every week, especially on a Monday when I come out here griping about a meaningless 4th down call in the second quarter. They've won 12 straight games. Since I lit a fuse, in the program by after that, while questioning Norvell after the Louisville game, going into the Syracuse game, they are 21-6, and they're 12-0 in their last 12.
12 straight games of scoring 30 or more points?
All that, which is the second longest streak in ACC history. It's really, really, and it's not all been against ACC teams. 2 SEC teams were thrown in there. Oklahoma's thrown in there. Brent Venables, for crying out loud. You scored 30 against that dude. It's so cool. It is just so cool, man. It's so cool to be thinking about this weekend, right? I got friends coming to town, got an ex-wife coming into town. I don't think Brady's coming, but Shanna's coming down. It's a night game. It's a top 15-ish matchup. I think Duke's in the top 15. They had to go up some after that win. It's a primetime game on ABC where you're number 4 in the country. Doak is going to be packed. It's going to be rocking. And I always have to put myself back in this moment and realize how lucky we are to have this job, number 1, even if they were horrible, which they were. But to have this job when they're good. This is as fun. This is just what college football is about, man. You think about the game all week. You break it down. You get excited before the game. I don't know what your nerves are going to be like before Duke. I get it. It's not the game of the century against Miami. You're not trying to shut down Steve Walsh or Michael Irvin or whoever. Or back then it was Toretta. But man, it's just cool, right? It's just cool that you can nitpick, and I'm not saying you, I'm saying all of us, because I did it too. You can nitpick about a 41-3 win in the midst of a 6-0 start, which is the first time it's happened in 8 years, and you're number 4 in the country with a real chance to go undefeated in the regular season if you continue to play well. That's cool, man. It's really neat, and I appreciate everyone that made it possible, Aslan. Let's just put it that way.
One last thing about the game. You guys talked about it on the wrap. Also, you asked Coach Norvell about it, but sort of like the emotive nature now that we're seeing out of Jordan. Jordan, for the most part, was so stoic. Other if he would get hit in 20, he would still display the pain he was enduring. But like the frustration that we see him kind of displaying, Keon's like, hey man, we're cool. Like he showed emotion. It's not the end of the world. It's totally fine. And I do agree. Like I don't think there's any discord at all. I just wonder how that plays, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, if it's a one-possession game in the second half against Florida. Like, do you start pressing? Or is that a weird jump in logic or a conclusion to jump to?
No, I think what helps is this is not James Blackman or Hornswoggle yelling at players. Hornibrook
never did. Hornibrook kept his composure, I feel like.
No, but I'm saying if he had not kept his composure and screamed at Kendall Briles or Taggart or screamed at Cam Akers, they might have lost their minds and be like, who are you to yell at me? You can't throw it 28 yards.
Who do you think you are? I am.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Like but Jordan Travis, not only does he continue to play hurt, and he got banged up again on Saturday, which is just going to be a weekly thing. But again, you hope they're just the quote unquote minor ones where he can come back from. We don't even question anymore that he can come back from them. He has put in so much time in this program. He is a leader. He is the unquestioned leader. He is not Jameis Winston personality-wise by any stretch of the imagination. But he has earned so much goodwill and so much trust, and they all trust and believe in him. And he is so good that getting yelled at by him or getting – and I don't even know, like the one play in particular I'm thinking of is the Ja'Kai Douglas play across the middle where it's 3rd and 10. He throws it. It goes off Ja'Kai's hands on a shallow cross where it looked like Douglas probably could have gotten the first down if he had caught it. It doesn't look like a great throw, but Jordan Travis immediately starts kind of telling him he should have kept running, like demonstrably. He did it in the LSU game with Trey Benson on a read play where he thought Trey hit the wrong hole, and he's like, no, this hole. He's doing a lot more of that, and I think it might bother players if another person was doing that, but how could it bother them with Jordan Travis? And I'm going to guess he's right. That's the other thing. I don't think he's the kind of kid that he makes a bad throw and then blames somebody else for why aren't you where I threw it? I just feel like in the moment he's going to be the guy in the right, and I think that plays fine. I think quarterbacks can be hard. A lot of them are. A lot of the best that have ever played the sport are. And I feel like he's taking ownership of how special this season can be. That to me is what I'm seeing. Like, you know what I mean? Like it could be that he's got 6 games left in his regular season career, and he's tired of them not reaching their potential. He's getting angry at them. But I think it's also because he wants them to start playing at peak capacity, because if they do, they can't be beat. And I think that's true. I think if this Florida State offense puts it to its highest gear, there's certainly nobody on the schedule right now that can beat him. So it's frustrating for him because he wants it so bad. And that's what Norvell said, right? Like he's the ultimate competitor. And I thought that was the interesting thing that Baber said before the game that caught my ear maybe more than anything else when he was saying that Travis was the best they've seen and they had just faced Drake May, was that his will to win and his competitive spirit is kind of what separates him. And he doesn't know if it's because of where he came from and the fact that essentially 2 coaching staffs didn't want him, and he's got this huge chip on his shoulder, but he does have a chip on his shoulder, and he knows this can be a special season. So darn it, run the right route. And if you're going to call a 4th and 1 play that has us in the Wildcat, get it in quicker. Or just don't do that. Like he was angry about that play too and was like seemingly very angry on the sideline still. But competitors are like that. As long as it stays in a good place and it's not Antonio Brown ripping his jersey off and walking off the field, I don't think Jordan Travis has any Antonio Brown in him.
No.
I think that's good. That could end up being very good because after that, they did seem to play a lot better. But I don't know. And at practice, he does it some at practice, right? But not a ton.
Yeah, he does do it at practice. He'll walk right up to the kid after the rep and he'll tell him like you should have ran this way, etc. But it's never like in a showing him up like I'm here. I'm gonna call you out on the mat in front of everybody. Just like, hey, let's get this fixed right now, so I can trust you to get it right on Saturday. Yeah, it
reminds me of I don't think he's doing it because he could go to Ja'Kai on the sideline and say, man, why didn't you run he could just walk off the field and clap his hands like, dang it, and run off the field. I don't think he's not doing it to embarrass anyone. I think in the moment, it's just almost an instinctual reaction to tell him, like we did with Benson, like he did with Ja'Kai running the shallow cross, because he's so frustrated. And he's like, wait, what are you doing? And it reminds me of like when a putter misses a putt, like one of these great golfers on the PGA Tour misses a putt, and they do that stupid thing with their hand. Like, wait, you were supposed to break right.
Oh, right.
Like, I don't think they're doing that to say, guys, that wasn't my fault. It didn't break the way it was supposed to.
Show the caddy up. My caddy
he's not showing the caddy up. He's just saying, man, why didn't you do what I thought you were going to do? And it's just almost like a reactionary, involuntary reaction. And I feel like that's where he is. As long as it stays positive, which it seems like it is.
Okay. By the way, Duke 17th in the coaches poll, 16th in the AP poll.
So they didn't go up at all?
Yeah, they went up one. They were 18th.
But not, I thought, okay, all right. I thought they'd have gone up a few more. Are they still behind USC?
Yes. USC
That's a joke.
16th.
That is a joke.
It's sad. It's sad. Well, they're ahead of them in the coaches poll, but they're ahead of them in the AP poll, behind them in the coaches poll.
Are they ahead of Clemson, I hope? Is Clemson even on it yet?
Nope.
All right. They will be if they beat Miami this week.
You think so?
I think that'd get them to 5-2, with their 2 losses being to Duke and Florida State. I think that could probably get them in there, if they look good doing it.
MyBookie.ag, promo code WARCHANT, instant cash deposit bonus when you sign up. So that means you put money in, you get even more money to play with. Make your bets. Let's just get it over with. Last weekend, not a good weekend for your guys. I'm now 2 up on Corey, because Corey has gone 0 for 2 on both weeks. I've only got 1 right. This guy over here thought that LSU Auburn was going to go under 60, which it looked kind of like it maybe would. But then there was a spat of scoring to hit the over late in that game. Yeah. And then, meanwhile, I don't want to talk about Arizona beat the hell out of Washington State. That was the bad decision.
Did we bet on Washington State?
Yeah, to at -8.
Oh, we both. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My fault, guys. Yeah, that did not work out.
That did
not work out. I apologize, everyone.
But we got a new week ahead of us, and we're going to give you some winners for sure on Thursday's show. So
Stone Cold locks.
lead pipe, stone cold, whatever you want to call it, locks over at mybookie.ag. Jordan Travis plus 1175 to win the Heisman, 4th best / shortest
What's
odds.
What's Penix at now?
He's now minus. He's minus 143.
Okay.
Which they're going to lose, man. They're going to lose.
Yeah, they probably are. Yeah, Caleb Williams is done. He's got no chance, legitimately no chance now. Yeah. And neither of the Colorado kids, not that Travis Hunter did anyway because he had missed 2 or 3 games, neither one of them have a chance either. So Jordan Travis is still kind of paddling along, and everybody else is, jumping out of the boat and drowning their chances. So he's still right there.
Jaden Daniels plus 1350. He's right behind Jordan, which is like how?
Well, Jaden Daniels is good, man.
He is,
again,
but
they played, and it's not like Jordan was horrible in that game. Jordan outplayed him when they played each other. Yeah.
Maybe J.J. McCarthy's the play at plus 940 because Dylan Gabriel.
That would be ridiculous if he won the Heisman.
Well, it might be one of those A.J. McCarron ones, kind of.
I guess.
Career Achievement Award. Anyhow, make your picks. It's spooky season over at MyBookie. Promo code is WARCHANT. MyBookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Corey, for as delightful as it was to have a noon game, get it out the way, win, cover, shout out Aslan. I think I was the closest on margin of victory of everybody that picked the game over on the WARCHANT Report powered by Cummins. Oregon-Washington game was awesome. It was electric.
Yeah. Yep.
I saw people like, I didn't see anything that makes me fearful. It's like, yeah, man, that's not the point. They watch us. They don't see anything to be fearful of either. It was just a good college football game that we all appreciated. The night was horrible. The Notre Dame Southern California game was a dud. Oregon State UCLA was a dud. But how did South Carolina choke against Florida?
Yeah. That was crazy.
But I guess part of me was like, I hope Miami kind of wins just so game day's still on the table, which I think is no longer the case for us this season. First half, I'm like, all right, man, this is going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle when they come to Tallahassee. They got Clemson this weekend as well. I mean, we won't talk about that one. But I guess just what they could look like if they lose that game, how much energy they'll have to play Florida State. But I took a shower. I came out the shower, and they were down by like 14 points. What is wrong with that team that seemingly has some decent players? They just can't get it they have a bingo card, Corey. If they had a bingo card for Miami football, it'd be just absolutely ridiculous. They fumbled near the goal line. They had it like an unsportsmanlike on a third down where they sacked the quarterback.
Yeah, on the coach.
Well, no, that was another one that happened too. Which he didn't have to do that. The referees were stopping play for Miami to make the substitution. They weren't going to let North Carolina make a snap because North Carolina made a substitution as well. Shout out Sean McDonough for pointing that out. Is that what it looks like to not be a quote-unquote disciplined football team? Is that just what it comes down to?
Lord, man, North Carolina set a program record for penalties too. I thought, look, I will say this. I thought there was a chance, as we talked before the game, that they might lay down and quit and lose by 50, or at least lose 48-10. They didn't. They played hard. They had the lead at half. Drake May is exceptional. I guess I see now why Mac Brown really wanted that receiver to get eligible. Yeah. Holy moly, he's a good player. He is a difference maker. But yeah, I thought their defense kind of gave in late, and they got bailed out by some holding call. Well, I guess I shouldn't say bailed out. They were legitimate holds that maybe the plays don't happen otherwise. But North Carolina was running all over them, and it seemed like there was a hold every other play. But yeah, and Van Dyke threw a couple bad picks. It's just that they couldn't put it all together. Honestly, weirdly, I think they played better in that game. They looked better to me, especially on offense. They looked much more impressive in that game than they did the week before.
Oh, yeah.
Georgia Tech's game, they were terrible the whole game. But they do have some weapons, man. The Restrepo kid, Miami's receivers made 4 catches in that game that you almost jumped out of your seat. What? Yeah. How did he catch that? They just made some great catches, because sometimes Van Dyke will throw it 140 miles an hour from 7 yards away. So I think their offense is legit. The one worry, so they're going to play Clemson this weekend. They will not have a good crowd there. Clemson might have as many people as Miami. If they lose that game, to drop to 4-3 and to have lost 3 straight ACC games, there is a chance they kind of give up on things. The only difference is that they don't. I don't know that they would do that against Florida State, right? That could be their season salvager.
But historically, when Florida State's good and Miami's terrible, we win that game. Florida sometimes.
Yeah, but I don't think Miami's terrible. I think they're a 5-1 football team that lost to an undefeated team, and their coach cost them the other win. But we'll see this week, right? I guess I'm going to do what I did last week. This will be a really telling moment in the 2023 Miami Hurricanes football season, because you could foresee an instance where they cash it in. It's I don't feel like I can't block this guy anyway, and then the defense will be what are we even doing? Why are we even trying when our offense can't score? This is pointless. So it's really an interesting matchup, because Clemson's not any great shakes offensively. This should be a game. I don't even know what the spread is, but it should be a very close game. But neither of us would be surprised if Clemson wins by 3 touchdowns.
Right.
But if Miami does win this game and beats Clemson at home, then they can tell themselves, look, we're a 6-1 team that got screwed out of a win because of our dumb coach, and we can go still have a 10-win season. And we can still go ruin Florida State's season. And I think they have the players that could. They have a strong offensive line. They have a strong defensive line. They have some dudes that can play on both sides of the ball. The receivers are very, very good. It could be a very good game, or they could come in and you could beat them like you did last year. But it's a really intriguing game, right?
I think worst case it plays out the way it did this past weekend against Florida State. They could maybe be up at half. Maybe they'll come out first half with this rally around it's us against the world. This is the last shot we have to salvage the season. But I would think in the second half, Florida State will probably run away with it. That's the worst case that you're threatened at halftime if you're a Florida State fan. That's the worst case I can see with that game. And I'm not trying to be arrogant to the rivalry and how close the games have been in the past. I don't feel that, man. That the way they looked in the second half against North Carolina, seemingly not having made any adjustments, or just North Carolina making Gene Chizik, obviously, I guess being Buddy Ryan now, and Chip Lindsey being Al Saunders, or why did I say Al Saunders?
Al Saunders.
That's a bizarre.
Yeah.
Chiefs back in the late 2000s, in the late 90s, early 2000s. Everybody strong offenses that they just there was this clip they played during the Texas A&M game where Mario
we haven't talked about that yet.
Well, when Miami was playing A&M, but yeah, we get to some Jimbo bashing. Everybody get clear out your schedules, get ready for that one. But like during this Texas A&M Miami game, they played a clip because the crew was obviously there like a day or so before the game, and they played a clip of Mario talking to the team after practice. And, there's like this tough talking thing about like, listen, we're built for this. We're built for the tough situations. We're built to play against the teams that everyone says are tougher than us. Like, we're tougher than them. And I was like, oh, yeah, I kind of believe that. But then A&M jumped out to a huge lead on them, and they somehow, they rallied back and they beat A&M. Like, they're not that, though. Like, they are not built for the tough situations. Because the tough situation was coming out against North Carolina in that stadium and having a lead and then putting your foot down, and like they couldn't get out and they tripped over their own foot. So not threatened at all by them. And the schedule.
Okay, all right. We'll see. I think they're gonna. We'll see what their record is and where their mindset is going to that game. There's obviously a pretty good chance that Florida State will be undefeated, and Miami can ruin their season, ruin their chance at a national championship. That might be enough to get them really motivated. And I do think if they're motivated, that's a talented team. I think that's probably the most talented team left on the schedule. But they might not be motivated, and they might not be well coached. And you will be motivated, and you will be at home. But wait, we're not there yet. You still got to win 3 games between now and then. And I will say this, all 3 of those games coming up are losable. You're going to be favored by double digits probably in all of them, but they're all losable, and they're all games you could win by 30 points. And the one last thing about the Duke game, and we'll touch about it later in the week, but something that occurred to me on Sunday was just like, when has Duke ever been in a game like this? Like, not just, it's number 16 versus number 4, but when does Duke ever go into a full stadium at night with a rabid fan base? Like, Duke's always, this is homecoming, but Duke's always like the sleepy homecoming opponent, and they're used to playing NC State in front of 38,000 half-interested fans. Like, Duke being one of the marquee home games on a schedule is not normal.
Right.
And they're not going to be used, I don't think. Now, they can still handle it. They're college kids. They'll get adjusted to it. But they're not used to the kind of crowd that's going to be there on Saturday. Because it's going to be a 7:30 Doak night game crowd for the number 4 team in the country against a team that Florida State fans, at least for this year, should and do respect. So I think they're going to be louder than they've been all season. And I think that's going to be cool to see, and it'll be interesting to see how Duke handles it, because Duke's used to playing in front of library crowds. So how would they handle being in a real football, college football, big-time atmosphere? Because even when Duke goes to Clemson, man, it's never a big game. Clemson fans know they're going to beat them by 30 points. It's usually at noon.
Right.
This is a prime-time ABC night game on the road in front of a crowd and a team that really respects this version of Duke, knows they have to play well to win, and is going to show out and be really loud because it's an enormous game. And this fan base is really fired up for this football team. Just Duke doesn't get this a lot. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle it.
Speaking of fire up, Jimbo Fisher loses again to Tennessee. I mean, I shouldn't say like they have Tennessee has A&M's number, but seemingly Jimbo Fisher doesn't know how to win football games at the clip that he used to. Some crazy, I don't even know the number, but I heard something he had not won a true road. He's got some weird road losing streak as well amidst all these struggles that are compounding upon what's going on in College Station. I didn't watch. I was still flipping. I think I was staying on the Oregon-Washington game. I don't know if you had dual screens going on, but I was so locked into Oregon-Washington I didn't really care for that.
Well, in South Carolina, Florida, too.
I didn't. My friends brought that to my attention. Like, man, Florida really sucks this year. And then someone's like, hey, don't jinx it. And they jinxed it. So, yeah. But, yeah, I don't know. Make fun of Jimbo. Let's do it.
Well, look, man, you wonder because he's owed a lot of money, clearly. But A&M has a lot of money. And I just think you look at this. And, again, he's loaded that roster. They've got NFL dudes everywhere. That defense is insane. Milton threw for 100 yards, Aslan.
Really?
For Tennessee. He threw for exactly 100 yards, and they won the game because
special teams play, though, right?
A&M scored 1 touchdown.
Yeah.
And do you know how many field goal attempts Texas A&M has this year? Through 6 games? Maybe it's 7 for them. Field goal attempts. For perspective, I think Ryan Fitzgerald is 6 for 6.
Okay. 20.
21.
Ooh.
21 field goal attempts. So it's just the same old stuff. And he makes kind of weird fourth down decisions not to go for. But his offense is just a joke. It's awful.
Is Petrino not calling the play? Do you think he's not calling the play?
It doesn't matter. But that's the whole thing. Was that ever going to happen? Like if Jimbo would just allow himself to accrue talent at a place that will pay top dollar for great players because they are absolutely desperate. And he would bring in, I don't know, man, the Colorado OC. And just let him do that. Do what you're doing at Colorado here at A&M with all these great toys I've given you. They would be top 8 in the country. But Jimbo is still stuck in 13. It's not the worst thing that happened to his career. It's the best thing that happened to his career. But it is ironic that, like, he had the 1 year where that offense it was unbeatable. It was incredible. It's one of the best offenses we've ever seen in college football. And he keeps chasing that. And it's never going to happen again. And, he can rightfully say, like, look, when my offense operates at peak efficiency, it's unstoppable. Look at this. But it's not going to be that guy anymore. So I was going to say, it looks like an archaic offense. And it is. But just 10 years ago, it worked and led them to a national championship. So he's still trying to chase that and won't adapt at all because he's smarter than everyone else and knows how offense should run. And it might derail his career, and he might be done coaching in a year or two. Like this seems untenable. And I watched some of the Aggies because I'm into karma. I watched some of the Aggies post game stuff, and they do a really good job. Whoever the one I watch anyway, it's like a production. They're just like it's the same stuff. It's the same stuff.
The same stuff that was
points.
Here. They can't protect either, man. It's the same stuff that was happening here on his way out, where like he could not protect his quarterback. Is happening in College Station too. But he's got a good offensive line coach now, right? Like he got rid of old Rick Trickett. He's got
Adazio, right?
Yeah, and he's got himself a really good defensive coordinator. But he is much better than Charles Kelly, DJ Durkin. So that's not the same. That's I don't know, man. It hurts my heart. Hurts my heart to say my guy, but
it's bizarre. And then
reality. It's reality.
So you had that. You had So here's where we're standing now. So Florida State is 4-0, undefeated. Sorry, number 4 in the country, 6-0, undefeated.
Correct.
Jimbo Fisher is now 4-3. Another season, no matter how they end it, is going to be considered a disappointment because he was not hired there to be in year 6, 4-3. And again, have one of the worst offenses in the country, even though they've given him all the resources he could possibly want. They still can't score points. They still can't score. It's got to be so maddening to be an A&M fan. They want Sumlin back. It's the same record. At least those games were fun to watch.
Yeah.
You'd lose 45-40 or you'd win 45-40, but at least you're scoring points and the band gets to play. So you had that happen. And then you have Deion do what he did on Friday night. And there's some Schadenfreude there because of Deion before the season saying he's not a Nole or whatever. So I just think other than Florida coming back and winning, you had Miami lose, you had Jimbo lose, you had Deion lose. And your team won 41-3 and is still undefeated. Pretty good weekend, everyone.
Not bad. Not bad at all. All right, that's a wrap for us. More shows coming this week, though, because that's what we do. Jeff Cameron Show, 1 to 3 o'clock. Coach's press conference, 11:30 a.m. So hop on around 11:32 a.m., and then Corey will probably have his first update posted in that thread that he continually updates throughout the entire day. How much typing do you think you do? How many words do you think you knock out on a Monday inside the museum, Corey?
A couple thousand, I think. Yeah.
Light
just
work.
what I do, gang.
Light
just
work.
transcribing away like a boss.
So we'll have all those up. 321 up on warchant.com. Ira Schoffel's insight. You need it. It's worth the price of admission. Also, don't forget, recruiting updates from this past weekend also available on warchant.com via the premium recruiting board. So go over and check that out.
It's supposed to be a big one this weekend, right?
Yeah, low key.
I think so.
Yeah, that Duke game. I need to go unearth all the preseason. What's the trap game? Because I was like, it's going to be the Duke game, I think. But then we're like, but Duke doesn't have the athletes to make it a 60-minute football game.
But I don't think this can consider itself a trap game.
Well, that trap, like, what's the one game that we're all not talking about in the preseason that might be tricky? And I think the Duke game. Watch out.
I feel like that record, that ranking, what they did this past week, what they did to Clemson, home games sell out. if you lose, it's not because you're looking ahead to Wake Forest. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be locked and loaded in on this game. I do think there's a proper amount of respect for Duke because what they did against Clemson, they have a really, really good defense. And it's going to be a really good challenge for them. And as we talk about this later in the week, if we do get to a point where Florida State is playing a Georgia or Ohio State, this might sound foolish. I promise you it's the truth. This is a good defense to prepare for that. This is one of the 10 or 12 best defense in the country, guys. And you're getting, just like Clemson is. It's probably a tick below Clemson. Well, it's definitely a tick below Clemson in like NFL ability. But they are extremely well coached, and nobody scores on them. So it's really good prep for if you get to a game against one of these big dogs in December. You will not see a defense that's light years ahead of this one. This is a very good challenge and test for you.
He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.